chapter 6, verse 1. 2 Corinthians chapter 6 and verse 1. Now, thank you. Hi, Charlie. Man, it's so good to have you in our church family. I'd like to present you with the shirt. It's a little big, but guess what? Bobby's going to grow into it, and you get his large, okay? As close as I can get. Right? Or you can use it for a nightgown if you like that. Anyway, welcome. You're welcome. Yes, right. You guys have one of my pictures. Let's stand together. We're going to talk about our commission from the Lord and how fitting that we should have two banners up here. One, Mark 16:15, which says, what does it say? Go into all the world. And the other part says, and preach the good news. That is our mandate. 2 Corinthians 6, verse 1. We then, as workers together with him, also plead with you not to receive the grace of God in vain. For he says, in an acceptable time I have heard you, and in the day of salvation I have helped you. Behold, now is that accepted time. Behold, now is the day of salvation. We give no offense in anything that our ministry may not be blamed. But in all things we commend ourselves as ministers of God in much patience, in tribulation, in needs, and in distresses. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much for your word. Thank you for the value and the words that we glean from. I thank you, Holy Spirit, that you partner with that word from time to time to put energy and life and power into it so that it transforms our life, that it renews our minds, that it draws us closer to you, Jesus. I thank you that word ignited by the dunamis of the Spirit of God becomes alive within us. And it brings us to places of brokenness and places of repentance and a place of faith. I pray, Lord, that as we speak that word tonight, that you'll bless it once again. Not because of your servant, but because of what it is. It's your truth, Jesus. And I want to honor you with it. And I pray this in your awesome name. Amen. God's called us, we saw this morning, as ambassadors of Jesus Christ. He has given us this ministry of reconciliation, and he's given us a message. That's why we have the mandate to go and to preach the good news. We understood from this morning that message is about Jesus, who knew no sin, but he became sin for us, that we might be reconciled or brought back to God in a restored relationship with God. What greater call could God give us than that? What greater task lies before us as a church family to such a charge, such a mandate? I want to talk about three things tonight. We begin where Paul says, we then as workers together with him. There is such a greatness in the ministry of the Lord Jesus Christ. In fact, it's too great a ministry for it to be in vain. You know what vain means? What does it mean? Without purpose, nothing, useless. What did somebody say back there? Wasted. It's in vain. Why would you work for something that produced absolutely nothing? Why would you keep doing something that produced absolutely nothing in your life? The greatness of the ministry is so great that it can't be done in vain. I want to stop for a minute. And I want us to rethink what the apostle has already taught us as we've gone through this book together over the last few weeks. First of all, he said that we will be clothed with a new body. A body that we get to serve God in the heavens. But until that time, guess what? We have this body. We have the treasure in this body. And we have this body to serve him right here and now. That's motivation. He's given me a vessel that I can use to serve him here and now. Then there's the catalyst of what Paul called the judgment seat of Christ. that we have to stand before the Lord and give an account of ourselves and what we've done. That urges us in our faithfulness to what we have been given. And then there's the love of Jesus Christ, the love of Christ that Paul says, it compels us. What does that word compel mean to you? It motivates you, it pushes you, it prods you. We have the love of Christ in us that compels us to share this truth. We talked about this morning, we have been given a new birth, a new relationship with God based upon not a physical birth, but a spiritual birth. You know, every one of us spent months in the womb of our mother. And the truth is while we were there, we had absolutely no knowledge of time, did we? In fact, we have no memory to fall back on. But one day we were birthed into a new world, a world that we came to know, the world that we live in. And yet, let me tell you something, by the Holy Spirit of God, we have been birthed into a new world and given the opportunity of that birth. Somewhere we lose sight of the old and we're transformed in this salvation experience to be birthed into a new life with Jesus Christ. We're living in a different world. It's a spiritual world. We have the new birth that motivates us. We also mentioned this morning, don't forget about Calvary. How can we forget about Calvary? Because it shows us just how far humanity's enmity, the division between us and God, our sin, would go. But it also shows us just how far the love of God will go to reach out to us. God made Jesus to be sin. He didn't know sin, but he became sin for us so that God could restore a relationship with us. How far will God go? How far will God go? I'll tell you how far he goes. He'll go all the way. Amen? He'll go all the way. And Paul says here we're workers together with Christ. So we don't want to receive this grace from God in vain. And the Word of God leaves us with absolutely no question whatsoever that a believer would ever come to the point that they would lose their salvation. My rebuttal to that is a lot of people didn't lose because they never really had it. But the Scripture's plain. You look at John 3:16, that God loved the world so much that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believed in him would what? But have what? Everlasting life. Then you look at Romans 8:1, and it says that there is therefore now no condemnation to those that are in Jesus Christ. Then you look at Ephesians 2:8-9, it says, for by grace are you saved through faith, that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God, not of works, lest any man would brag or boast about it. So you've got those that this grace has been in vain. You know why? Because they're false professors. They're false professors. The church at Corinth that Paul is writing this letter to was full of them. There were many there. They never manifest any sign of being a new creation in Jesus. For your guys' sake, this morning we talked about the old has come and the new has taken the place. That's the new birth. That's the change that happens. Everything becomes new. The problem is, the church at Corinth was full of a bunch of false professors. There was no sign that they'd been saved. They eventually turned back, in fact, to their pagan lifestyle. There were those in John 6:66 that had followed Jesus for a long time. But guess what? When he quit doing the miracles, and when he quit providing food for them, guess what? The Bible says they turned back and never walked with him again. And then sadly, there are those that when Jesus comes back and they stand before him, and they say, look what we've done, and he says, I never knew you. False professors. And the world's full of them. Oh, they profess, but the profession is false. They bear fruit, but guess what? It's not spiritual fruit. They're false professors. And see, that is the greatness of this ministry that God has given us, that we are to go into the world and what are we to do? We're to preach, tell the good news of Jesus Christ. That's what we have as our mandate, to tell people of Jesus Christ. So guess what? There's not only the greatness of the mandate, what about the message? And what does Paul say about the message of Jesus? Now is the time. Today is salvation. That's a quote from Isaiah 49:8. To tell us that the day of grace has arrived. This is the time for salvation, and that time is right now. Why is there such an urgency for a person when they understand? Why is it so urgent that they put their trust in Jesus Christ? I'll tell you, yesterday is gone forever. Tomorrow may not ever come. And today, that's all we have for promise of. God lives in the present time. Did you know that? Think about it. What did he say about himself? My name is I am. Not I was, not I will be, but God says I am. In fact, Jesus would later say in John 8:58, he said, before Abraham was, I am. It's all about this present moment. And think about it, the older you get, you guys don't understand it yet, but the older you get, the faster time flies. And it fleets away so fast that the future, guess what? It becomes the present. And the present has already become the past. It happens so quickly. So the present presents us with just a moment. Just a moment are we given the opportunity to transact God's business in our life. Let me tell you a story, a true story. In 1871, in October the 10th of 1871, one of the greatest speakers of modern day was named Dwight L. Moody. And he went to Farewell Hall in Chicago, and he announced it, he publicly announced it, made it known that he was going to be there, and he was going to speak each night. And he was going to speak about Bible characters. On the fifth night of this great campaign of preaching in Chicago, he asked this question. It was the title of his message. What shall I do with Jesus, which is called the Christ? Remember who that was asked of in the Bible? What are you to do with Jesus that is called the Christ? That's a trivia question. I want you to find it. And after he preached that night, he made this statement. He said, I want to ask the crowd, I don't want you to come and respond right now. But I want you to wait, and I want you to go home, and I want you to think and mull over this, and come back next week to Calvary and decide what you're going to do. And in the history books of what he said about that night, you know what Dwight L. Moody said? I made my greatest mistake. You know why? Because that Sunday night on October the 10th, when he walked away from that building, he could see flames in the distance. And by the time he got home, he had to pack up and leave his home, because his home would be burned up. The city would be burned. 3.3 square miles of Chicago burned that night. 300 lives died in that fire. His greatest mistake is that he didn't use that moment, that time, to call people to repentance and faith in Jesus Christ. 22 years later, on the anniversary of that night, he met back in that spot, and he preached to a great crowd again, but he told them, on October the 10th, when I walked away and never gave them the chance to respond, in 22 years, I have never been able to preach to one of the faces that I saw leave that place that night. Can you imagine the burden that it was on his conscience? That of hundreds and hundreds of people there that heard that message, what will you do with the man called Jesus Christ? We didn't give him the opportunity. Later that night, great songwriter Ira Sankey closed the meeting with a powerful version of this hymn, and it goes like this. Today, the Savior calls. said no and no and no and no to God. And now they would like to say yes. But God's not listening. You ever done that? I have. And in fact, I don't know what to say. Oh, Pastor, there was years ago that I heard God's call, and I heard God's call, and I said no and no. And you know, I haven't heard God speaking to my heart in years. What do you say to a person? What do you say? Seize that moment. And God says it's now, today. And then lastly, there's the greatness of the method. Notice what he says. We give no offense in anything that our ministry may not be blind, but in all things we commend ourselves as ministers of God in much patience, in tribulation, in needs, and in distresses. The greatness of the method. First of all, we avoid anything that's going to be offensive in the ministry. That word avoid is a Greek word called proskepi. And it just means we never give an occasion for somebody to stumble and fall. You know what that would be like? That would be like me saying to Charlie, hey, Charlie, you know what? I know where you've been. I know your addiction. And then, let's go out and eat a bite, would you? Let's go out and eat a bite. Let's go have a steak. I know you like it. I see you. So let's go to the steakhouse. Yeah, I'm going to have a beer. You want a beer? Never make an offense that would cause somebody to stumble. Never. We must avoid it. How important it is for the methods that we use to be true. I never want to scare anybody into salvation. Amen? I don't want to ever force anybody to think that they have to come and worship God in this place. But I'll tell you this, I do want to scare hell out of everyone. Because I want heaven to invade their soul. You understand what I mean? I want everyone to have a desire and a love for Jesus so much that they can't stay away from worshiping Him in this place. Amen? How important our methods need to be true. Nothing should ever be done that would discredit our ministry. And I'm going to tell you something, folks. Don't forget this. There are a lot of people that have offenses, and at best they're trivial. They're trivial offenses. They get upset and mad over anything they can to excuse their rejection of Christ or your rejection of their lifestyle. And people will throw everything at you. Some of them I've heard is, oh, they passed me on the street the other day and they never even said hi. Well, I could say that to Billy and Mildred. I walked out of Rose's the other day. They were out shopping. They drove right by as I was walking out the store. I just waved up. They didn't wave back. I'm offended. Wouldn't it be that easy? Somebody says he preaches too long. No, I don't. He only preaches for money. That's a lie. One time in 15 months. Oh, he never brags on me. Guess what? I hope I never brag on you, but I hope I always brag on Jesus. Oh, all they want at that church is your money. That's not the truth. We ever ask you guys for money? We never have. We don't. That's the Lord. Amen? That's the Lord. Oh, they're just not a friendly church. Is that true? Why do you guys like to come here? They're friendly folks. They love you, don't they? You bet they do. There are times that our offenses are taken, but they're so trivial that they really don't matter. I can't remember when, LaDonna probably does, but it's so interesting that, and don't worry, we're not going to put this on the World Wide Web. But I had a church member tell me, he said, Pastor, I'm offended. And I said, what have I done? He said, you drink coffee. You're addicted to coffee. And I said, I'm so sorry. So I'll quit. And then we go to their home a few days, a week or two later, and guess what? Yeah. You know what that is? That's not being offended. That's being a hypocrite. also make certain that we approve ourselves, Paul says, as ministers of God. What does he call us to be? Remember what he's called us to be? Ambassadors. What does that mean? You remember? That we represent another country. We represent Jesus in another country. You know what that country is? There you go. It's God's kingdom. It's Jesus' kingdom. That is the ministry that we call to be ambassadors. And his message is a message that we proclaim. That he became sin for us, whom we know sin. That we could be made the righteousness of God. What a great message to share. And there are things that we accept. Patience, Paul says. Let me tell you something. More than that, you know what he said? Much patience. You don't think Paul understood ministry and how hard it would be? It requires patience, Charlie. Much, much patience. Paul had learned from his mentor what it meant to be patient. He was Saul then, but he sat at the feet of Gamaliel. And you remember when there was such an uproar because the Christians were growing and they were preaching and nothing was being done about it? You remember what Gamaliel said about that? He said, guys, he told the Sanhedrin, just settle down. Listen, if what they're doing and what they're preaching is true and it's of God, we couldn't stop it anyway. Just be patient and let it work out. That's what he said. And Paul knew that. He understood that. He would say later in Romans 5:3, he said, our tribulation works patience. Wouldn't it be great that if you could just pray and God give you all the patience that you needed? But you know what? Patience doesn't come that way. Through much tribulation, through difficulty, through heartache, through death, through sickness, we learn patience. He talks about much patience. And then he says tribulation. Do we accept it? The burdens, the pressure on our spirit, the great pain, the issues, family, life, and ministry. And let me tell you something. Most people will never understand the burden of the ministry. They'll never understand it. Because, honestly, only those in the trenches can grasp what it means. You know when you lead a ministry like Converting Hearts, or you pastor a church like Fellowship, the burden becomes overwhelming sometimes. Where's the next dollar when it comes from? We need, what do you call them? You call them clients. I just call them guys. We need another guy. What do you call them? We need another resident. What do you do? Most people never understand the burden of the ministry and how it touches and how it's felt. Let me tell you something. This is my personal ability. My burden for our church right now is almost overwhelming. You know why? Because I have high expectations. I want to be a church that is on fire. know why? You know why it's such a burden on me? Because my fear is if we don't stay growing, that we'll become stagnant. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't want to pastor a stagnant church. And my greatest fear is that one day, soon, we'll die. And I sure don't want to pastor a dead church. So I need you to pray for me. And I know somebody's sitting, or somebody will listen to this, and they'll say, "Oh, preacher, you expect too much." Does God expect anything but my best? Huh? Does God expect anything but my best? Folks, I'm telling you, the burden of the ministry is the fact that one day I'm going to have to stand before Jesus. I got to answer for myself. But I got to answer for about 90 people. Fellowship Baptist Church right now. Charlie, Bobby, Stephen. I mean, you're going to have to answer to God for what you do. That ministry goes very hard. And let's see, that burden becomes heavy sometimes. Heavy. So what do we do? How do we handle that? There's my other water. It requires much patience. It requires tribulation that we go through. It requires, I can't read it, necessities. He mentions that, the necessities, the need. You know, Paul was a poor man when it comes to earthly things. He worked with his hands. Every time he had to support himself, you know what he did? He went to work. He supported those that worked with him. He worked. What did he do? Remember? He's a tent maker. He had built 10 and 10 and 10. Ever how many it took for him to live for the next week or the next month, and those that were doing ministry with him. He knew the shortage of support as a missionary. He knew that word, and he uses it here, a necade, speaking of one that's been pushed in the corner, one who does not know what to do, one that reaches the point they don't know how they bear the load. He knew what it felt like. He experienced that burden many times. In Rome, in prison, he would write one day to young Timothy, and he would say this: "Please come before winter, and please bring my cloak. Bring my jacket, my coat that I left in Troas." You don't think that was a needy man? Winter was coming on. Please bring something to cover me in the cold. That was the cry of a man that was up against the wall. And finally, he mentions the stresses, the extreme pressure. The pressure that maybe we put on ourselves, the pressure that other people put on us. Maybe it's the pressure of the responsibility that we hold, but extreme pressure. It reminds me of a man named Samson. You remember? The first superhero, I call him. Remember who was trying to get the secret to his strength? Delilah. She pressed him and pressed him and pressed him day after day till he reached the point he said, "I am vexed in my soul. I am so heavy in my soul," that he says this, even to death. How in the world do we stand under such pressure? Well, just like Paul, we do not forget that the love of Christ constrains us. Amen? The love of Christ constrains us. That we stand and we withstand because we are filled with the Spirit of God. And we also understand that we just can't carry this burden of ministry all by ourselves. Isn't it great to have Bobby? Isn't it great to have Stephen? Isn't it great to have Dustin? Yeah. I mean, not just the fleshly thing that he cooks a great meal, but it's great to have him in it. We can't carry the burden of this ministry alone. I need that love. I need that feeling. I need that lift from God. Because I want to tell you something. Suffering, listen to me. You're not going to want to hear this, but suffering is an integral part of living the Christian life. I'll guarantee you one thing. You are never going to hear that on TV with most preachers. That suffering is an integral, vital part of the Christian life. We have to suffer. There is no such thing as Christian living being like peaches and cream. In fact, nothing could be more untrue than when somebody stands up and says, I name it and I claim it. That's a lie of the devil. But I tell you what is true. The Bible and the New Testament is full of suffering as a believer. And Jesus even said, guys, don't think it's strange when you're tempted and tried and go through tribulation for me. Amen? You know what the Bible says about it? Don't think it's strange. I mean, expect it. It's going to come. Here's a question from an old song. Must I be carried to the skies on a flowery bed of roses when others fall to win the prize and sail the swelling seas? I tell you,